Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 161. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comics forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. This week we are talking Trinity with a very special guest. I've got lots of notes, so I'm sure to sound my best. The bad guys have their own Trinity that switches members faster than Van Halen. How is it that I get stuck doing this week after week with drnorge Whalen? I wanted to get powers like Sunchained and Inked, so I covered myself in tattoos and had some Zima to drink. When I fought crime, I got nothing but stares. It's because my new look made me look like one of the Care Bears. I can see Sean starting to laugh at all kinds of chuckles. Well, Sensei Bear isn't known for spreading love. He's known for busting people with his knuckles. So says Sensei Bear of the Whatnot Segulin, coming soon to the Johnny DC universe.
Sensei Bear, stare!
I had fun.
Dude, man, you're a poet and you didn't even know it.
Most of the listeners will agree.
Okay, which is worse, drnorge's poetry or the Sensei of Whatnot singing? I don't know. I'm betting they're going to say the singing. That's an easy one.
I don't know. That's a pretty interesting debate. I have my own issues with my own poetry. This episode, we are going to be joined by a very special friend of the show, Allen Passalaqua, as we talk about Trinity. There were some stellar things going on in Trinity during this time. He's the colorist on the co-features of Trinity, which is basically he has colored in this whole series the entire DC universe and DC multiverse. So it's a wonderful series to talk about. And we've got actually some announcements about some upcoming work of his and some websites to chat about as well. So it's always great to have Allen on the show. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Our sponsor for this episode is DCBService.com, where you can pick up Allen's work in the Trinity trade paperback Volume 2, written by Kurt Busiek and Fabian Nicieza, art by Mark Bagley, Scott McDaniel, Mike Norton, Tom Derenick, Art Tiber, Andy Owens, Jerry Ordway, and Wayne Faucher. The second Trinity collection featuring issues 18 to 35 of the weekly series is here. The Trinity of Heroes are legendary characters who are believed to be the keystone of all creation. Convinced that Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are this Trinity, Sorceress Morgan Le Fay teams up with Despero and Enigma to replace the three icons with evil doppelgangers from the multiverse in order to recreate existence. Can the greatest heroes of the 52 universes stop this evil plot, or will evil win? 424 pages, regularly $29.99, 40% off, $17.99. This is what, if you are not reading Trinity, if you have not read Trinity, or if you're looking for a great collection of it, this is the way to get it. You know, $29.99 book at $17.99. Whatever your shipping preferences, your bag and boarding preferences, DCBService.com accommodates your needs. Also sponsoring us is InStockTrades.com, where you can pick up the History of the DC Universe trade paperback in a new printing. Don't miss this new printing of the definitive history of the DC Universe, featuring virtually every character in the DC Universe. This tale takes us from the dawn of creation to the end of recorded history and lays the foundation for adventures to come. This is a great companion piece if you own Crisis on Infinite Earths. It was done by Marv Wolfman and George Perez after that event to kind of lay out what the universe is going to look like. So it's a very classic book. The artwork is fantastic. It's really sharp. It's regularly $12.99, 37% off, only $8.18. So if you're looking for a classic piece of DC history to check out, it's 104 pages for $8.18. It's a pretty good price. So definitely check out InStockTrades.com. And remember that orders on $50 or more give you free shipping, which is great. I also want to remind everyone that Super Mandy from the forums, Mandy, who does our Life in the Gutter, is our next contest winner. She's going to be deciding soon what our next In-Stock Trades Book of the Month is going to be. So I'm really excited to have another listener come on and join us. Remember that you can always join us for that contest, that In-Stock Trades Rage of the Month contest. It's ragingcontest@gmail.com. Over the summer, I want to get back to doing that bi-monthly with listeners again. So we're going to do Super Mandy's, then we're going to pick another listener. So you have plenty of time to enter into that contest. If you have any ideas for the contest you want, just send an email to ragingcontest@gmail.com. I'm pretty open-minded. My goal is to get as many people as possible involved in the website and just kind of the community-based aspect of it, but also to get as many of you as possible on the show. So I hope you guys participate in that contest. I want to thank our other sponsor for the episode, drnorge.com. I use the example of the fact that when I had long boxes, especially when it wasn't full, I'm talking about like half full, 3/4 of the way full, when I'm trying to shift materials, there's been times where literally I've lost 1 or 2 books. I am meticulous with my books. I've sold comics on eBay before to finance other, collected editions, hardcovers, things like that. And I really pride myself on keeping a really nice looking collection. And I'm a reader. I like to reread my issues, but I take good care of them because when I reread them again, I want them to have that new kind of feel to them. I love the old comic smell and everything, but I still want the pages crisp. I want everything to look sharp. I'm not one that I put my books away and I don't reread them again, but I'm also not one that I let any damage befall my books because, I want to enjoy them over and over again in the same condition that I bought them in. Well, it's very frustrating when you have that kind of mentality and all of a sudden a book gets folded or bent or a corner gets bent or things like that. I'm the type of guy that I get so crazy about it that I end up rebuying the book or seeking it out at a convention to try and get one in the same condition again. Collection Drawer has these wonderful box sort upright dividers in there. I mean, the drawer boxes were already cool because of the fact that you can slide them open and your bottom box is fully accessible. But now with these upright dividers, it's like you can do anything you want. You can make breaks midway through the box that is there for the purpose of adding new comics in. You can make sections of your box, your 2 read piles, right inside your box that are divvied up right there. And to be able to put gaps in there for your collection, it makes it so easy to keep your collection organized. I read a lot of books each month, and I read a lot of titles. I like to keep my titles alphabetical, and you also keep them by company. So, and then I take it one step further, like with DC, I'll break it down by Vertigo, Wildstorm, Johnny DC, so I'm breaking them down within the company by different categories as well. So because of that, to be able to have ways to leave gaps so I can fit comics in where they belong is something for me that's just wonderful. If you haven't tried the drawer box storage system, do yourself a favor. They are amazing. The boxes are just incredibly durable. I've got the first generation of them, and they are still ticking, and I love the fact that I was able to upgrade them to these box sort upright dividers. Check them out. It's www.collectiondrawer.com. This is just a wonderful way to enjoy your collection. Let them know that Raging Bullets sent you. And check them out. They do, if you're if you're someone who's like ready to jump to a new kind of box and you're trying to do a larger amount of your collection, they offer volume discounts as well. It's also great if you've got some friends who are comic collectors going together on them, have them shipped to you, and then divvy the boxes out. That's another great way to save some money by banding together on these wonderful boxes. But I swear by them. They're wonderful boxes. Jim, he saw how much I loved mine and ended up purchasing them as well. That's www.collectiondrawer.com. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler show. We go in depth in the plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
I was almost going to stop that and redo it, but I think it's so funny. We're a what?
I was hoping you didn't catch that.
Oh, no, yeah, I did. That was wonderful. We're a spoiler. What do we do now? All right, let's go ahead and jump into our conversation with friend of the show, Allen Passalaqua.
Carter Hall, scientific genius from a far-off world, flies into action as Hawkman.
Joining us for this segment is longtime friend of the show, Allen Passalaqua, the colorist on Trinity, and we're going to be discussing Trinity issues 46, 47, 48, and 49. Allen, welcome back to Raging Bullets, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Sean and Jim. I appreciate it.
Allen, I wanted to talk right away about the covers of this book because I've loved the way that it's showcased and spotlighted the Trinity. And I know you did the color work from just talking to you before we started this on issues 46, 47, and 48 on the covers. And actually, one of the things that stood out for me on that, I'm like, this is his co-feature team, the ones that he's been working with all the way through on this. These are wonderful covers. What has it been like to work with these iconic characters? And do you prefer them in their Trinity garb or in their traditional garb?
Well, it's kind of fun when they break out. especially when you have like the shadowy demon Batman and the giant blue Superman, and cause I feel like I have a little more freedom. But and then there's always that thing when you're coloring like the Batman or the Superman or the Wonder Woman that you're coloring like the Trinity, and that's a cool thing in itself too. So they're both cool, but for different reasons.
Right. I'm looking at this cover for 46, and it is that the demon Batman, and I'm with you that I've seen the initial covers obviously focused on artists doing renditions of the classic Trinity as we've led to them in this state, and it's been such a wonderful book for that. And we've gotten these great. I'm a big fan of the whole multiverse concept and the fact that DC's books have been able to kind of play with their characters where you see them in different forms. These iconic characters like this, so it's a rush for me, and I think like the way this story's built, we're going to be so ready to see them back in the classic form because of their journey that these characters have gone on from them being completely vanished to slowly we're getting them back, and that's been the great build of this whole thing. But this cover right here is absolutely gorgeous by Tom Derenick and Wayne Faucher and you. I mean, this is really a good looking. I love them in the Batman especially. I'm a Batman freak. And that is a creepy looking Batman.
Yeah, I think these three artists really captured, 46 through 48. They're all, each one's a different cover artist. I think they really did a great job capturing each essence of the story, and I was really happy with all the rendering I did in all through different artists. So I'm happy as well.
Hey, Alan, do you know if they're going to do a book of the covers like they did for 52?
That's kind of a sales thing. I mean, I'll definitely mention it to the editorial team, and I think it's a possibility. But as of right now, I don't know of anything scheduled or planned now.
That'd be outstanding because I absolutely love these covers, and I've actually laid them out together and just seeing the three pieces together. And I'm like, man, this would just be such a perfect, slightly oversized, hardbound book. And I would just, I don't think I'm alone in saying that it would probably be a good sell.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, the thing is that they're drawn as 3 full comic boards, so a lot of it's actually cropped for the covers because of the how they set up the actual logo. So there's actually even more artwork there you can't even see. So if that was just out there in its raw format as a poster book or something, I think people would really appreciate that.
Now, so when you get them, like the 3 covers when they were the interconnecting covers, do you then get the whole image and that is what you do the color work on? Or do you get them in individual pieces? How does that work for on your end of it?
After the first couple of covers, I got them as one. But that first, I did the covers for 1 through 6, and that first, the first 3, like I got the inked version of number 1, the kind of the hard pencils of number 2 at the same time, and then the rough pencils of number 3. So I colored number 1. And then I finally got 2 and 3, and I had to make it all work.
I was wondering what that process looked like for you because you nailed it. I mean, they looked really great. That had to have been very tasking when they were separate.
Well, by the time I got to 46 to 48, I'd done. I think I've done 3. Well, I did seven sets of 3. So I'd already done quite a bit, and so I kind of had the formula in terms of. The first couple were really challenging because they have to work not only as individual covers, but as a triptych, as one big cover or one big image. So, there's definitely a learning curve to make that work.
I want to talk real quick just about the series and this kind of an intro to where we're at for people who are listening right now. And then I want to dive into the co-feature in issue 46 because I really want to talk about some of the coloring work you did on this because with the fact that you had changing creative teams on there. You had wonderful artists that you were working with, but I was amazed with how consistent this felt all the way across. And I do think a lot of that is on you because of the fact that we had the same colorist all the way through, keeping consistency in tones and shifts. And I really appreciated that because I never felt, a lot of times when you see art shifts in a book, it feels like jarring. In the sense that, it's like a fill-in team or something like that, and it feels very different. This kept a consistency to me all the way through that was, I thought, a highlight. The co-features I thought were just as consistent in feel and tone as the main feature, however you want to term it. We did this last time when we talked about it, trying to come up with a name. But I do think that was, and I do want to compliment you on that. That was a strength of this book, because these co-features, I think, are what made Trinity special, because it gave the writers a lot of freedom to start developing spotlights and focuses on certain events that were happening in the front, and fleshing this out to the point where I really feel like I know all of the supporting cast. I feel like I noticed the status quo of all the heroes, and this is really just, to me, this should be a template for not only how you do a weekly book, but how a lot of monthlies should be crafted as well.
Yeah, especially the co-feature monthlies. Especially now where it's breaking down, we've gone through, what is the Trinity, who they are. We've broken them down. They went away. They've come back now in this godlike form, fighting off the forces of evil. So we had all those first runs where the co-feature was kind of telling the side story, the backstory. Well, now this co-feature is a continuation of the action going on in the first part. So it's like especially we're talking a flow through, not only just visually but story wise, and it's now really the issues of Trinity are in a way kind of like a double-sized issue, if you will, where you're getting both the first part and then the second part of one story. So it's been a really cool process. I'm really liking this, how this got built up to where it is now, where it's just this pure action fight sequence, bam, 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 constantly going on. Anybody who gave up on Trinity, because I don't want another weekly, they're missing out now. We're getting the massive payoff from the story building, from the backstory of the characters. This is, just a bravo.
Cool. I'm glad you like it. I really like the format too. It was basically broke down to Pete Pentanz was the other colorist who's doing the main feature, and he was doing anywhere from 12 to 15 pages of story, and I was doing anywhere from 10 to 12. Depending on where things worked out, usually 10 pages, and I think the split worked out really well, and I do like how the stuff I worked on really kind of, especially early on, like it was in a totally different direction, but it was like just creating this depth to the story you don't usually get. So I agree with you. I really like the format. I think something like this in a monthly would be great. Maybe a little bit bigger. It's a little thicker book, but I think it worked out really well in the end. And I'm actually done with Trinity now. I've turned everything in, so I've been pretty happy with the final results.
And the first trade has been solicited, so if you missed this book, this to me is a book I would easily hand to anybody who's never read DC before, or maybe has been away from DC for a long time, because it really is a who's who of the DC universe. Not only does it have new and original characters that are very well crafted, but it really does showcase and spotlight all of the cool characters and how they interact with your iconic characters like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. And that was the neat treat of this whole thing. When it was originally built, I figured, it's going to focus on the big three, and we're not going to get much else. And it was kind of like, who didn't we get in this book?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel like I've colored everybody in the DC universe.
and actually some people in the alternate universes as well. You're hitting everybody, man.
That's definitely true. It's helping me for my next gig.
Now, the big question I have is, how hard is it as a colorist to... Because you really did... the entire JSA, the entire JLA, and then just supporting casts of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman that appeared in there. How do you prepare for making sure you're consistent with what they're doing in their monthly books or things like that? Obviously, the cool part for me was when you guys got to play around with that alternate universe, and we got to see. I loved the new Hawkman outfit, by the way.
Oh, did you? Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, the green upper top.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping he would choose to keep that, because I gotta be honest with you, I like it more than his regular look. That was very cool.
It was pretty cool. And actually, who knows where that might actually follow through somewhere. I think eventually, and I don't know this for sure, but I think there will be some influence on Trinity in the DC universe at some point. So we'll see. But yeah, I agree with you. I like that Hawkman look. It's just a little sleeker and looks a little more modern than just the bare chest with the straps.
It does feel more today. Like, I love the classic look of Hawkman, but you could easily show that this is, now it's we're in the new millennium. This is a new look for him, and
it's a 2000 look, not a 70s look.
Yeah.
True.
It's
and we did see just about every rendition of Hawkman in this too. So you definitely got your Hawkman fill, right, Sean?
You know what? There's never really too much, though, of Hawkman and His Amazing Friends, which really, I was expecting at some point for the title to change, and it never did.
Hey, this is the title that started making me a Hawkamaniac, so this was a really good Hawkman story.
What do you think, I mean, and this is kind of like a greater overall, of all of Trinity, but what do you think of, what if there wasn't a Trinity, and all of a sudden Hawkman finds himself, he needs to fill that gap? I mean, what do you think about that whole that part of the storyline in the alternate universe?
In my real world, that's the way it should be. No, but I mean, honestly, taking it seriously, I thought it was very interesting to see what that would do to the universe and how that you would see these characters reacting. One of the things I liked about that alternate universe is I could very much see why these heroes were behaving and acting the way that they were, why the universe took the turn that it did. And that was one of the things I really liked about the exploration. Marvel does their Ultimate line where, it's kind of like a relaunch of all the Marvel books where they didn't have to stick with the continuity and they had some freedom to play around with it. That's where books like Ultimates and things like that kind of veer off in their own direction. I would love to see a DC book, especially after seeing Trinity do this alternate universe, where they do something like that. Because that to me was a lot of fun, not just because it was Hawkman. It was great to see all of the characters and how Jay and Allen and all of them interacted and changed. It's kind of like a Marvel's What If book or things like that, where you got an opportunity.
Like an old Elseworld.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Cool. Very cool.
One of the most appealing things about Trinity has been the consistent whole universe feel of this book and the scale of the events. When reality was altered, like we're talking about on a huge scale, we're seeing this gradual return to normal now, but there's still some huge problems as a result of what happened. Morgaine, Despero, Krona are trying to rip apart the world soul, which is the life and identity of our world. And I'm taking it that this, would destroy the world as we know it, and that is something we start to see in issue 49. We got these wild cards like Enigma and Convict, who throughout this whole thing, we're seeing them, and that's one thing I loved about this, and it's the great thing about the fact that this is a 52-week story. You had the chance to really develop Enigma and Convict. I remember back when we originally talked about this series, we were trying to figure out who Enigma was. It was so cool to see the slow reveal of who this character was and to see his motivations as far as why he was quote-unquote a bad guy. Mm-hmm. Then to see his gradual, I don't know if it's even fair to say a turn back to the side of the good, but to realizing that he made some grave errors with his allegiances.
He had one of those moments of, oops, I kind of made a little mistake here.
And that is, I think, one of the strengths of the co-features as well, because we'll talk in a couple minutes about Convict. And there's this wonderful backup story or co-feature story about Convict where we get to see some really internal exploration as far as what drives this character. And that's what I want Convict to appear somewhere after this. This is a character who I don't want to see done in this book.
Yeah, well, I think they've developed a really strong character with some cool motivation, so it's possible. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Kanjaro is a great villain because I don't know about you guys, but he just feels like a little weasel you can't trust. And because of that, you just can't help but want to see bad things happen to him. And that was one of the other strengths of this particular book. Because at this stage, I would read a miniseries called Random Heroes Beat Up Kanjaro. I could see him becoming DC's version of Kenny from South Park. You just want to see horrible
Oh my
things.
God, you killed Kanjor!
And, Krona was another one where it's interesting how these characters, trapped for so long and understands the large scale of his goals, his patience in making sure things are done right is a sharp contrast to the impatience of Morgaine, who's like that spoiled brat from Willy Wonka, mine, 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 now, daddy. That's kind of Morgaine's whole MO. And I think that's been kind of the strength. I actually got to the point where I started calling the Dark Trinity Dark Van Halen because they changed lead singers so much that. But it fit a villain group because of the fact that they don't have a unified motivation. It's not for the greater good of others. It's for self. It's for their own personal gain. Because of that, I liked the fact that we saw this team divide up and that they had to keep getting a new member because their motivations didn't work. And I liked that we saw, like Convict, for example, Zor, realize that this is no way to get back his honor. Which, it's a good point to actually jump and let's take a look at the co-feature in this issue because it features Zor. Talking about that, I loved seeing him, in this overwhelming mountain that's before him. It kind of shows where he's at. He feels very small in the whole scheme of things because it seems like every action that he's taken was somehow wrong. And this opening shot right here, so totally fit for me the emotion of this man of honor that, he seemed very proud in the beginning of this, and now he's somehow diminished. And that was I just thought to me this opening piece that you did and you guys on the artwork on this really just fit the tone of a character.
Yeah, Scott McDaniel, who drew that, he's pretty amazing at taking that story and just basically showing that visually in even the subconscious way. So it was really, this issue I think turned out really well.
Yeah, because you see this look of frustration on his face as we look through, and I mean, just the development of this character there, and his only friend murdered before him, and you get to see these moments where it really is like this lost soul.
Yeah.
I love when the other characters show up that we see him analyze them based on scent and instinct, but he also knows that they were pawns. And I really enjoyed the art choice of a very calm scene when they meet, building to the slight red coming over his face as the anger builds, to the final outburst where the guy who previously looked so emotionally weak now seems like this giant. It was really an interesting contrast from where he started at the beginning of this particular segment to now. The energy.
No, I really liked that when the amped up version of him.
Yeah.
So I think the first time I had to come up with that color scheme was I just kept following it through, and I think it turned out great. I like the energy crackling through his armor, or his like almost rock or stone, like plates, So it's always visually pretty stunning.
And one of those cool sequences was when he's all full amped up and full energy, and through like his basically his flexing arm, you see Primate's face, and she's got that softness to her, and they're trying to talk him down, saying, "Hey, we're not here to fight you. We need your help." And it just, that really is the thing that caught me, because I got this kind of thing from Zor, and you just see this the lovingness, just that softness. I was just like, I ate that up, because you can see it's such a strong contrast in that one panel. That was just like a really cool thing.
It's amazing how she's so extreme like him, because her sense of romance is almost as extreme as his sense of honor.
Yeah.
Because she's just as twisted. Because Convict is a twisted dude.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, he's got this perverted code he's trying to live by, but, it's like he can justify things with his code, but you can see where that keeps going wrong for him on multiple levels.
I think it's kind of weird where it's kind of like the and this is going to be a really far stretch for people, but sometimes when you look at like the character like Wolverine, where he had his samurai code and he had his code of honor, and then you go right from that extreme to the Berserker Rage, and there's still the man of honor in there. I kind of see that within, Convict. He has this code, but he has this, anger, this rage that builds in him. And part of it, I think, is maybe because of, the stuff that's happened to him with these kind of been powered up. He's not really who he was or the man he wants to be.
Yeah.
What I like about Convict, too, is that there's a very human side to Convict, in the sense that a lot of what he goes through in here is because he's just misunderstanding things. It's not that he's a bad guy, and I never felt like Convict was a bad guy. I felt like he was a guy who was really trying to do the right thing and just was messing up horribly. And that's what I liked about him, because we do that as humans. We make mistakes, sometimes with the best intentions. We make huge, horrible mistakes at times, and we have to deal with the consequences. And I related to this character in that way.
Yeah, he's definitely like a creature or a man out of not necessarily time, but like out of his depth. I mean, basically he's a child still as well. So he didn't really get to grow up. He just became this battle being, a genetically made soldier. When he's not fighting a war, like, how is he supposed to act? So it's just, it's like he's got all this stuff programmed into him anyways, and now he's in a situation where he doesn't even understand. Other people aren't even living by the code that he lives by. So there's just, misunderstanding abounds from every time he has to deal with, a group of people. That is incredibly powerful. So
yeah. I got to deal with that all the time too, just too powerful for my own good, and I try to do one thing, and it just makes mistakes. It's a tough life to live.
I'm glad I can edit you out.
He got the joke. He laughed.
He was being kind. Another one of my favorite sequences is the one with the crime syndicate. And I mean, this had to have been fun. Because I'm looking at this, and their whole world is falling apart. And you're talking about iconic structures here that you guys had some fun really destroying.
Yeah, I love coloring the crime syndicate. And I've done a lot of JLA stuff, but it's just whenever you do the crime syndicate, it's just, I don't know, I can just be a little more dynamic and just, throw some extra hard edges on things. And so like that first page with them on there, it's just, I'm those three anyways, Superwoman, Owlman, and Ultraman. They're definitely like some of my favorite bad guys. They're not like super deep, but they are. I mean, they just are what they are.
It was so important. I'm glad, actually, because it was one of the things I was just going to compliment you on, too, so I'm glad that you went there, because I really thought it was important with the talk of this Trinity that you bring these guys in and they don't get lost in the shuffle, because we've already got this Dark Trinity going with Morgane's group, and these guys, really, for me, they stood out, and they became such an interesting part of this story because all of their motivations made sense, but their inner conflict throughout this story, they had to all of a sudden, at one point, they have to make a decision because of these events as far as whether or not they're going to jump in and help out in all this, and that, to me, was so brilliantly handled throughout this whole thing. These guys were absolutely MVPs of a lot of this story.
Yeah, well, and remember, there's a point where they have to become heroes to save their own world, and it's like almost drives Ultraman over the edge. It's like, no, I don't want to be a hero. It's just, it's like they have to, otherwise they lose the opportunity even like to be the bad people that they normally are.
And I love these bits with Johnny Quick running around through the nuclear meltdown. It's you can tell that I was like so waiting to see how these guys were going to react to this stuff, because obviously they're really ticked at Enigma, because Enigma at their core is now forcing them to change, and I think this is obviously in a way that Enigma did not intend.
No, totally not.
This bit with Superman-style Ultraman, where he realizes North Korea's slave pits, his favorite vacation spots, were destroyed. I could so see this guy with a little cabana, a drink with one of those little umbrellas, maybe hibachi, kicking back with some friends. Well, he doesn't really have friends, but some people who hang out with him because they're afraid he'll crush his heads. Enjoying and watching the slave pits like Michael Phelps at the Olympics or something. Because this guy, I mean, the way he was talking about this, this was like the most horrible thing that could happen to him in the world. This was like his television. I loved this. This is very twisted.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that is very. I mean, he just wants to be evil. I mean, that's his whole character. I've always, like the whole Earth 2 thing, and I'm actually not sure what Earth number they are anymore. But like when I first got into Crime Syndicate, it was Earth 2. Or was it Earth 2? I'm trying to remember.
There was the Grant. You're talking about the Grant Morrison special?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was called Earth 2.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, that was kind of my introduction to them, and I don't know, just that whole dynamic is great. Superwoman is like having an affair with Owlman, with and then there's the whole Ultraman dynamic, and it's really enjoyable. I think that they always have a lot of potential. And then I got to work on them a little bit with when I was helping David Barron back on JLA, like back in the 105 or 15s or somewhere in there. So it's always cool to like come back and able to color them again.
I love this scene with Ultraman above the planet because it's a dark version of the iconic Superman scene that you see from the movies or, in the comics or something. You got him flying above Earth. You see this whole section of their planet being wiped out and him flying above it. And somehow it seems very fitting for him, but it's our Earth's mirror. It's the mirror relationship with this world is bringing this crashing down on them. And like I said, this visual frustration of the smoke rising in the backgrounds and everything with these characters, the facial expressions for these guys really worked for me with the scene and the tones of the color in the background, because this looked like a devastated world at this point. And this is what we've been reduced to, helping the scurrying little ants trying to heal the planet. It was a very dark and grim bit that it fit their emotion, because this at their core, where we see our Trinity step up because out of outrage over this type of thing happening, because that's what they want to do. That's who they are. To see this Trinity, this goes fundamentally against them because they didn't cause any of this destruction.
The one thing I always wonder is how come Ultraman doesn't have a goatee? If he's evil Superman, he should have the goatee. Come on, that's classic. This is a villain look.
I don't think I disagree with you there. I think that would be great. Because and actually, from a visual aspect, his coloring is so similar. It would actually make it a little easier, right?
The philosophical debate here: should we let the planet fall apart just to prove a point? Imagine a philosophy so twisted that not only would that be on the table, but it would also look attractive to them in a very real way. I mean, this wasn't something that was a passing joke. They were dead serious about that.
Yeah.
Well, you think about it. Maybe they can head out to find another planet, take it over, start over. Just call it Earth 2 of 2. So 2.2 version. I don't know. Have a little fun with it. There's got to be enough planets out there that they can take over.
I'm not surprised. Well, they have tried that actually, but it was just more for fun. I think just to conquer. I think they destroyed the. And it actually. Kurt actually wrote it. It was actually an old JLA run with the Weaponeers. They destroyed their planet, or they beat them up pretty well.
I loved the visual here of the Ultra Tantrum, just leading to Enigma, trapped but nowhere left to go. I love the text in this story is multiple meetings, because it can be applied to different characters. Because Convict here is trapped because in order to salvage any sense of honor, he has to team with Primat's support group and go after Morgane's group, even though he doesn't want to go back. Enigma has to team up with those he sought to bring down in order to correct the major mistake he made in teaming with Morgane. He lost who he was in his quest for revenge, and to twist his world in a way that he felt was morally right. I love that you can identify with him and sympathize as to why his actions would look right to him. He's just so far gone from grief that he couldn't see how wrong he was. And even his daughter Wilson, the ball or whatever you want to call her, she sees it and she's trying to reach out to him. And I loved that aspect of their relationship as well, having his daughter there to be a conscience of a sort with this guy.
Yeah, she's been pushing that.
The visual look of God mode here with Enigma, that looked cool to me. I love that whole I'm right here, where we see him just overlooking the entire group. He looked really, I really enjoyed the visual presentation of this book and the sense of power, but then we see him go back down to his normal mode, and you see the look on his face where he looks trapped. In the vision, you can see the visual in his face that he's trapped, dejected. This is not where he wants to be. And I just loved, you guys nailed this. You really did, because there's a lot of emotion. And it's one of the things I love about comics that are shown on the page, that dialogue, if it has that to help convey it, I don't think there's another medium that can convey the sheer amount of depth on a single page that this backup story did, this co-feature story, whatever you want to call this right now, did. We saw that with Convict. We've seen it with Enigma. We've seen it with the Crime Syndicate. They went through multiple layers of emotional depth in a very short span of pages, and it really was, it was the background scenery, it was the colors used, it was just every choice that was made in this really developed an interesting sense of really being confined for these characters, where they didn't have a lot of freedom anymore. None of them did. They all had to make choices that they did not want to make in order to somehow correct the dire situation that they're in. And I liked this. This backup was one of my favorite out of all of them.
Very cool. Well, I enjoyed it because I like to color the crime syndicate whenever I have a chance. And, I got to play around with some backgrounds in ways that I don't usually do. I get to push some stuff in directions, so it was nice. And also it was nice I think I've been doing that pink, the world is falling apart background for quite a few issues. So it was nice to kind of break away from that a little bit, too, with the grays and the reds and the somber colors.
As we're looking at issue 47, this really has an interesting cover, too. And I'm a big fan of seeing different interpretations of the Trinity. And you see Batman's a different kind of beast in this one, and Wonder Woman has a little bit of a different twist to her costume, and the same thing with Superman. I really liked this exploration as well of these characters. I'm with you, Jim. It's funny, the more you were talking about that, I would love to see this done in a hardcover volume, the covers, because they did that with 52, Alan, with the anecdotes from the creative team, that worked on each of the covers. So I would love to see you guys have a chance to talk about working on these covers in a nice coffee table book, because they really are beautiful. And I mean, a Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman cover book, how can that not sell?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you.
I mean, it's who's who of art right now playing with these characters, and to me, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, and then, there's some great covers. I mean, these three are great. And you got some Jim Lee stuff, some Pacheco, Marina, quite a bit of really big names. So, it'd have to sell. I think it'd be great.
As a colorist, how does it, when you switch from different art teams, and I know we've talked about this previously, but how does it affect you when you switch with a different penciler and inker? Does it change how you approach a piece, being that you're working with different pencilers, or is it really you're focusing on the character and the mood and tone being set? How does that work on your end?
Well, because it's a continuing story, I'm always trying to at least start at a similar base. So I always start in even if it's a continuation of the last story but a different artist, I make sure that the colors starting are consistent. The way I render, though, will change, and you can actually probably see the difference between 46 to 48, because each artist I just do it by gut, really, how I render it. And Scott McDaniels, I'd work a lot differently than I do Mike Norton. They're two different styles. And I don't know if I can really break that down into what I do. I just do it. I think it's more of an instinctual level for myself.
Is that fun on your end to be able to kind of, because I really do feel that it was funny. I felt that because of the fact that we had so many different creative teams on the back, the three different teams, that I thought that I would find more of the transitions jarring, and I didn't find that at all. It really was very smooth how this book just flowed off of each sequence. And I'm not just talking about, from the main feature to the co-feature. It was more between issues. When I go from, 46 to 47, 47 to 48, it feels like the same book. It feels like the same universe. I never feel like it's taken me out of the world that has been crafted here for Trinity. Because it was very important, I think, for this book to feel like this was all a shared experience all the way through, versus if you're doing, we're talking about the co-features that are going to be coming out now. You got a Booster Gold book with a Blue Beetle story in the back. You have a lot of freedom to make them feel different. And if they are different because of different creative teams, it doesn't matter because they're not interconnected. This was the same world. So there was a lot of times where you guys had to deal with what was going on in the front flowing into what you guys were doing in the back, and yet keeping it feeling like, geez, we've got the same story going on here. And you guys nailed that. It really was, I think, a strength of this book, and something that just so impressed me with how that was handled, because I guess I was naturally, as a fan, expecting, there's going to be some parts where it feels like it's a little off or something like that, and I never felt that throughout the series. And it was something that I put in my notes that I wanted to compliment you on, and compliment the whole creative team on, just how nicely this all went together, because that really did enhance my experience for this book.
Cool. Very cool. Well, I think I may have had an easier time than Peter did, because I had so many people drawing and inking it, I usually had my stuff a few days or weeks before Pete. So a lot of times he was matching my JPEGs color-wise. So
nice.
Yeah, so that a couple times he was a little ahead, but for the most part, he was working some other stuff, and this was like my main book, so I put most of my emphasis on this. So yeah, so I got to set a lot of the mode, the color modes and kind of where things were at and special effects, just because I had it weeks in advance of him, and it just kind of worked out that way. But I think, between the two of us, I think you're right. I think we obviously have a different palette. We color a little differently. Mm-hmm. Definitely a rendering. We render a little differently, but I think you're right. I mean, once you've read like 4 issues or so, there's no way you're not going to it's either going to totally turn you off, or you're just going to accept it, and then you're like not going to notice it anymore.
I got totally drawn into this. I mean, the presentation of this book was really, really great. And one thing I liked about Trinity, and this is something, Jim, I think you touched on this before. If for whatever reason, if 52 wasn't your cup of tea, if Countdown wasn't your cup of tea, don't let that turn you off to giving Trinity a shot. If you didn't pick this up, grab the first trade of this, grab a couple issues of it or something, and give it a shot, because the great thing about this book is it's a very different experience to either of those. It's a very contained story. You don't need to know anything about anything that's going on in the DC universe right now, because Trinity is all its own event, its own story. It's great for people who are just kind of saying, geez, I've got to follow 5 or 6 books to understand a story. This is one of those where you just follow Trinity. You get a complete story all the way through. All of the stuff that normally would be a mini-series unto itself or would take place in another title, it takes place in this book. And that is one of the wonderful things about this story. So I can't encourage people, if you miss this story, it's great. It's collected in trade, and it's coming out right now. And, I can't think of a better way, if you didn't pick it up weekly, to read this series than to be able to sit down and absorb it. I want to go back through and reread the whole thing now that, we're coming to the end, and just kind of absorb it.
I'm looking forward to the same thing. I'm actually, because, I read each issue as it came out, I read the scripts, and then I would kind of review the PDFs of just the black and white lettering afterwards. But I'm looking forward to the trade, so I can really, absorb it all again. It would be great if they put this out as an omnibus or an absolute at some point.
Well, and the artwork, because, for me, the only reason to do an absolute is the artwork. And you've really got such wonderful art all the way through all this, that this would naturally lend itself to being an absolute. I'm hoping that this is something that they would consider doing that for, because I would rebuy this as an absolute, which...
Cool.
This would definitely be an absolute for me. There would be no hesitation.
Yeah, there's some really nice artwork in this series, so I'd like to see it larger as well. Or if nothing else, I don't know if you guys saw that, the Batman R.I.P., they do like a larger version. Something like that would be really cool, too. Yeah, that's actually how I just read it. So it was a nice way to. It's just a nice presentation, especially just the oversize. You really get in there and look at the artwork in depth.
And that glossy paper just really tends to show the colors, and just there's the paper quality is just a little bit different, and I think that is a huge effect on it as well. So I agree with you. I'd love to see this in that format as well. One of them, because the paper change is very worthwhile for something like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
When I talked about the Dark Van Halen before, it really is, this is where we start seeing, like Morgaine, Enigma, Fake Despero. Dark Trinity 4.0, the songs that this group would create aren't going to sound right when they're sung by the real Despero and Morgaine and Corona. Sammy Hagar versus David Lee Roth. I was laughing all the way through this, because these self-serving characters, this team up of convenience, is really what their undoing was. But we're going to talk about in a little bit where this goes and what Morgaine is willing to do as a character to point.
Yeah, she ain't right.
No.
Yeah, she ain't right in the head, and I like seeing just this armada of heroes striking back on this amazing power set that you have going on with Chrono is just this huge, he's God, he's a godlike power. Beyond that, then you have the three Trinity with their god powers coming in, and even that, he's like, I got you, I can take you. And you have the entire legion of the heroes hitting them, hitting Despero's armada, and it's just this massive, massive, epic battle that is just going through. And I love seeing the different heroes just divide and conquer, take down this piece, keep the formation tight, hit them with a concise blast. You see Nightwing taking the strategist type lead as he's laying down the plan in the armada, but he's not the powerhouse. They have their powerhouses hitting the different the big ships. Then as you have the Trinity going in, they're doing a little divide and conquer. Then you have Primate's crew come in to try to throw down with Convict. It was just this really cool flesh of hit from one side, hit from another side. It's multiple attack formations that I really dig seeing that type of stuff. It's not just your straightforward dun da da. It's wave after wave after wave, because you need that much firepower to go up what you're going up against.
This Alfred sequence in the beginning, which it leads into the back, because this actually, talking about how much I enjoyed the co-feature last issue, this one with this whole Batman build was just a pure joy. Alfred's despair over what Bruce has become. But I'm glad that we see him latch on to the smallest possible sense of hope that arises later in the issue. That's something that I think is really important, and it was a nice build at this point, because Alfred's in the sense, and I'm never used to seeing Alfred in this particular state of despair, but it worked so well with everything that has happened in this book to this character. He had a completely different life. Now he's jolted back into this life. And what jolted him back is no longer there. It was Bruce. And now he comes back and his son is despaired. So I think what worked so well for me on that was the fact that they went through that sequence of events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, the level of exploration of not only the main characters, but, well, let's face it, the exploration's really through all their supporting cast, whether it's Lois Lane, Alfred, or Tressler. It's like what does the Trinity mean to them, and who are they? And even through their villains, Luthor and Alfred talking to each other, it's actually it's a really cool dynamic.
Gangbuster and Tarrant. Those are two characters that right from the beginning were developed all the way through it. And at this stage, you really care about them as characters. And this hint at, do they have a potential future together or not? That has been something throughout this story that's slowly developed. He starts to realize he has feelings for her and all that. I'm like, wow, I'm eating this up. And I think it's all the more interesting because we've gotten to know them over time versus like a 4 to 6 issue arc where we haven't had a chance to really grow with them. We did in this case. This is an interesting way to experience a story like this.
Oh yeah. It's like a novel. There's so much there. There's so many, chapters. There's so much depth. And I know I've said that before, but it's true. There's just this is a very deep story with a lot of things going on. So, and Gangbuster and Tarot, they were there in the first 4 or 5 issues, and they've obviously been pivotal the entire time.
In the front of the book, one of the things we start to see the crime syndicate get involved, and it's like a girls are icky kind of way for them because they're helping out the heroes. But I love that they're masking it with we owe you a debt. They clearly don't want to admit that they're doing anything noble or anything heroic at all. It's like the worst thing in the world for them to even... And I think they're more denying it to themselves than they are even our heroes at this stage because of how much they hate it. But then we see this world soul. And my guess with the world soul is if that dies, we're done.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what's inferred there. I think the Japanese have a term for that, the world being alive and or having a soul. I think that's definitely inferred there that if the Earth didn't have one, then it wouldn't be able to support life.
Now, one of the reasons why I was kind of rushing through the beginning of this is because I really wanted to get to this page.
The first one of the
right there,
yeah.
The role to play cover where it's Starfire and Donna Troy and Hal and I'm afraid to even ask.
Hal.
Huh?
That's Kyle, dude.
Is that Kyle back there?
Or is
No,
that
that's
Hal?
Hal.
That's
Oh,
Kyle.
that's Hal. Oh, I stand corrected.
I was going to say, when you were saying that, I'm looking at the outfit. I'm like, Kyle, what are you talking about? And you've got, it's like, who don't you have on this page?
That page took me almost an entire day. To be
That's
honest.
exactly where I was going. They tried to kill you or what?
And maybe I pulled it off. I mean, I was trying to make it as deep as possible, just to make it so it wasn't just one big flat, explosion of characters and colors. And obviously I started with Starfire, and like kind of pushed my way back. But man, that was an entire day's worth of rendering.
Well, let me put it this way: if it stood out for me enough that I was mentioning it as a page that I just thought was visually impressive by its depth and what was going on in it, I would say pretty much so you nailed it, because it was literally, when I saw this one, it's why I was rushing so much through the beginning of it. I really wanted to get to this to talk about it real quick, because it's like, who isn't on this page?
Yeah.
And it's really great that everyone was captured in such a way where they were interacting with each other. Like, you can see Roy and Stargirl having an effect on a certain situation. You see Nightwing teaming up and leading basically the charge with the Titans, and Cyborg's doing something in the background to affect the situation, and even Hal. It's to the point where there's so much going on that you get to the point where the heroes that are on there, you can't see what all of them are doing because there's so much action. That's wonderful, because it does give you the sense of scale and scope of this, to the point where we see whole groups of people in the background laying across the top of this ship. And I loved this sequence. But not even that page. When you turn the page and start taking a look at the next sequence, the screens that Alfred's looking at, I mean, you really, they got their money's worth with you on these couple pages here, because there's a ton going on here, man.
I did a lot of rendering in these 2 pages. Yeah, sometimes they're like that, and my goal is to make every page look as good as possible, even to the point where on that second page where Alfred's holding the suit that Bruce Wayne was wearing as a child when his parents were shot. I wanted to make sure that looked like it was, 30 or 20 years old and still had bloodstains on it. So.
Yeah, I gotta say that was kind of cool for me when I was looking. I'm like, oh man, he's still got the blood stains on it. Then as you just go through with the who ends up being Luthor contacting the Batcave, you see him going, "What's going on here? Who?" And then, oh my God, when he realizes who it is on the the phone, the video link. Yeah, that was just going from the somber contemplation of the young Bruce who held his dying parents
like a
to
sadness there, too.
it was that to the, oh my God, just that shock. That range of emotion in 3 panels was just a really cool just flow through.
Almost disgust when you get to the next page with them. But the other thing I wanted to compliment you on, Alan, is the screens. There was a couple ways you could have handled that. You could have made, because they were screens, you could have made the screens very, I don't know if homogeneous is the right word, but very plain in their look. But they were, to me, visually pleasing because of the fact that you put so much detail into these screens. Because to me, it would make sense that Batman would have the most high-end technology. And when you see these screens, the screens are just as interesting as the cave itself and what's going on in there. In many ways, there's more going on even in the screens because of the fact there's so much action. And I really appreciated the amount of care and detail you put into those screens, because I remember when first time I read this, I went back through and immediately looked at the issue again, specifically because I wanted to enjoy these particular sequences of events, because, between the smoke effects and laser blasts and the character action, seeing Ultraman versus Despero and Lois Lane, and you got Hal Jordan in the corner. There's so much going on in just these screens in the first bit, and you see our Trinity in their crazy godlike mode up there. Each sequence is visually distinctive. That it just had. I immediately noticed that it had to have taken a lot of time to put this together. And I really appreciated the care put into this sequence, because I did go back through and look at it again just because I enjoyed it so much.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. I mean, I render if it's there, and then sometimes the screens are just blank, and I actually use images throughout the issue. But if it's there, I'm want to make sure it looks as good as possible. So I'm glad you like that.
Yeah, it really worked because, I mean, we see the same thing, too, when we flip to Luthor. And I do think it was more visually stunning because what we see with Lex Luthor is clearly visually different. It shows that he's in a different location. He's in a different circumstance than what we saw with Nightwing and Donna Troy. And I really liked that because it even added more to the shock and awe that we got from Alfred to see Luthor in that sequence of events. And boy, he... Talk about a pompous dude who was just angry and annoyed that he wasn't talking directly to Batman.
Yeah.
That was.
What do you guys think of the battle suit? It's funny. I was looking for a ref for that, and it's been drawn and colored about 20 different ways. So I just chose one that I thought looked cool, and that's the one I did. But then, of course, when I got my corrections back, I chose the wrong one. So I had to go back through and kind of change things around, but. I don't know. I think it's fun. You know, it's cheesy and it's fun. But I'm just curious if you guys like that thing or not.
You know, it's funny because I associate it so much with like Super Friends and stuff like that. There's times where I'll think that the suit's cheesy, but I think lately it's been so reworked to be such a cool device where we've actually seen its capabilities a lot more. I think what happened was for a while it became like this visual effect for Luthor where you never really got the understanding as far as why does he even need to be in that thing? But I think lately they've done so much to correct that and to add depth to the suit and make it mean something that now I like it. And especially when you've got what's going on behind him, it would make sense that he'd be wearing something.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, he wants to fight Superman or be able to fight Superman, so of course he's got to wear his battle suit. It's actually I remember because a lot of times when I do I look up reference on anybody or you know especially what their colors are, of course. I always end up at the Wikipedia entry for it, and there was an interesting, you know, like I always remember him with this suit, but there was like an interesting history of the suit. That if you're curious, you should go check it out on Wikipedia at some point. It's just, you know, Luthor battle suits. I forget exactly how, you know, where it came from, and I don't even know if it's in continuity anymore. But yeah, just, you know, it's kind of a cool thing. Although if I was, you know, an evil Superman, I'd just kind of flick his head off the suit. But you know.
Yeah, I always wonder about that because, you know, when I look at it, you see he's got the clear shot on the head. So he's leaving it open, but in Luthor's vanity, he couldn't ever cover up his face. You had to know that it is Lex Luthor inside the costume.
And not some lackey.
Yeah, it's, you know, just that's part of who he is, and that was something I kind of like about the battle suit, but later on in the issue when we see him, you know, working out, you know, working out what he's doing, and he has part of the battle armor off because he doesn't need that. He's in the lab, he's breaking things down, he's analyzing it. I'd love seeing that, you know, having that, the fact that he wasn't in the suit the whole time. He didn't need to be armored up while he's doing his computations, while he's doing his, you know, doing his magic, if you will. That was
you need freedom
cool
of movement.
Thing.
Freedom of movement during that time.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I want to make sure to, you know, quickly talk about JSA, which is coming.
Yeah.
I'm excited as can be for that. I was so thrilled when I saw, because when you said JSA, I'm like, are you doing like the color work on the new series, or so? Are you kicking off then on the new book?
I start at issue 29.
Okay, Willingham and Sturgis, is that who you're going to be with?
And Matthew Sturgis. When they start writing that, I'll be coloring it. In fact, that's what I've been coloring the last couple of days. Marina, that's doing the books. He also did a lot of the covers for Trinity. He inked some, and then he then he drew some of the Trinity covers. So I'm actually going to bring that up just to make sure I'm getting all that right. So yeah, with issue 29, I'll be coloring that. That's going to be my main book.
Cool.
Well, that's outstanding, dude. Because JSA is a title that I'm starting to really. as things have gone on, I've grown and it's growing on me. And this was, my introduction to the JSA was doing this show. And, just as this series has come out, it was something that I've been kind of looking forward to. And I'm wondering, just like going on further, once Jeff Johns is off it, now I really want to see what's going to happen. This is a title that it's become one of my titles. And I'm like, they're changing around the team. I got to see what's going on here.
Well, if you read Fables, though,
yeah, see,
Willingham and Sturgis are dealing with a cast like this in Fables, size-wise I'm talking about, and they're masters at finding ways to spotlight characters, but then giving everybody screen time along the way. So I think this is a book that's like tailor-made for their writing style. I think this book's gonna surprise a lot of people that were concerned about it. I think this is an interesting choice, and because you don't want to do Jeff Johns.
Right, you want something different.
Yeah, because otherwise it's going to be like a watered-down Jeff Johns. Who wants that? Because you want something that's going to feel fresh and new, yet something that makes sense.
I agree, and I'm actually a huge Bill Willingham fan. I love Fables, and then he actually co-writes Jack with Matthew Sturgis as well, and those are amazing books. They're always good reads. So, and then, I'm only on the first issue. I've done 2 covers and some solicitation stuff, but the artwork is amazing. In fact, I'm probably spending a little too much time on it, to be honest, because I want it to look as awesome as possible. And, I think, I think it's not going to be a hard jump from one to the other. I think it's going to be a nice transition.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because in the Source, DC's The Source, they've shown some preview art. I believe it was a pencil and ink work that I saw up there initially, just as a kind of a teaser of it, and it looks really good.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's definitely, and the cast is right. They're hitting all the headliners, and the book's been left in such a place where a new writing team can easily play around with who they want to have, either if they want to have the whole crew, if they want to adjust. It's an open-ended way that Jeff Johns ended it that I'm excited as can be for it.
Now, were you?
I am too. And was I nervous?
Yeah. I was just about to ask. Were you nervous? Because I know if I had like any artistic skills and I had to go in, because JSA is very popular, I'd be terrified. How you feeling? You ready? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I am. I mean, I've done my share of JLA and JSA classified issues, which those are usually focused on one particular, or just a small group of characters. So, and then from Trinity, I've colored all of them. So, although I'll tell you, I've got a double-page spread on this. That, man, it was like an entire page of bad guys that I had to find a reference for, and I ended up actually having to go back to my editors for 3 of them because I had just had no idea. But it's somewhat intimidating, and and I find that comic book fans can kind of be haters once in a while.
Really? Oh, wow.
But I just do what I can, the best I can, and my editors always seem really happy, and I talked to I didn't talk to Tom a lot on Trinity, but I talked to Mike Norton and Scott McDaniel and his inker Andy, and they all seemed really happy with what I was doing. So if the guys that are pros, and Mike Carlin is he seems really happy every time I send him something. I just sent him a bunch of JPEGs today, and he said it looks good. So if those guys are happy, then what can I do?
Well, and I think when we talked about comic fans or haters, I think that's a small portion of the fans. I do think the average fan, when they walk into a new creative team, they want the book to succeed. I know when I pick up a book with a new creative team, I don't walk in with the attitude like this is going to blow. I walk in with the attitude like, oh, I really want this new team to nail it. I want this new team to excite me. I want this new team because I love these characters. I was enjoying what I was reading previously. I want this to work. So I walk in with that attitude, and I do think that's pretty much so the norm. There's people, though, I agree with you, and the haters in the sense that they already dislike the book before it's even come out. I'm like, how can you do that? You haven't seen it yet.
Yeah,
I know. I definitely see that, and I'm not going to... I've definitely had that experience, especially where they continue to hate on it for another 40 issues and haven't bought one in the last 4. I'm like, man, you guys are just such trolls.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't. It is intimidating. But I've already done 2 covers, and I think those look really well. In fact, I can give you my blog. I actually have the number 29 cover up on my blog, and it's actually solicited on the DC website. And
is that on angryf.com, or is that?
Actually, I'm putting a lot of my comic book stuff up on angryf.blogspot.com.
And there will be a direct link for anyone listening in the show notes to Alan's blog, so you can check that out, and you just you don't have to write it down or anything like that. Just click on it straight from the show notes or the website.
Yeah, and actually the very first post on there is, actually I did this cool thing where I actually took every page I colored of Trinity and put it in one image. So it's not super high res because there's issues that aren't printed out yet. But if you go there, you can actually see every page that I've done. I think I worried that people were going to be able to blow that up and tell what's going on, but it's in like no particular order. And when 52 finally comes out, I'll find a higher res JPEG to put out there so people can throw it up as a desktop background if they want.
Oh, man, that is outstanding.
Very cool. We're looking at it right now.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
It was pretty fun. It actually took me a couple hours to get that all to work out.
This comes up on Monday. So by the time when listeners are listening to this right now, they are going to be able to take a look at this right now, and then there's only 2 more issues, because 51 will be coming out when they're listening. It'll be coming out in a couple of days when they're listening to this, and then 52 will be the following week, so then they can pop back to the site and take a look more Trinity goodness.
When 52 comes out, I'll do that. And I've actually, I'll be at San Diego Comic-Con and sitting at an artist table next to the infamous David Barron. And I'll probably have like some postcards of that or something to give away to fans. So if anybody remembers to come see me in San Diego and tell me they heard me on Raging Bullets, and I'll definitely have one of those to give away, or I should have until they're gone. This
Trinity shot of Mr. Terrific.
I mean JSA shot.
I'm sorry, this JSA shot. Sorry, I'm like flipping between Trinity. Mr. Terrific holding, with the team in the palm of his hands. Wow.
Yeah. This looks cool, dude. Oh, man, I'm liking this.
Well, and I wait till you see the number 30 cover. I can't wait to put that up, too. But I always wait. I have to wait till they actually solicit it. So, like, there's a JPEG already out on the web somewhere. But if you keep looking at my blog about once a week, I'll put it up. And, yeah, it's actually, I'm pretty happy with that cover. And it's got a character in it that I think people are going to be psyched about. So that'll be fun.
Now, I'm looking right here. This Kid Colt. You're doing the digital for it's Marvel's. Is that part of Marvel's digital comics program?
Yeah, I'm actually. I hooked up with Stephen Wacker when I was in New York, and turned out he needed somebody to do the new DeFalco Kid Colt online series. So, I had time. So I think I've done 3 issues of it. I think it's 6 or 8 issues total, but it's an online-only issue. And it's actually pretty fun. My dad's a endurance horse racer. He does, 30-mile rides on his horse in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And so I send him JPEGs every once in a while, and he gets really excited about them because, it's all Western stuff and gunfights and horseback riding.
Ouch! 30 miles on horseback. Ouch!
Yeah, I don't. He's got calluses. I don't even want to know about.
Alan, how do you shift between? We're going from a Western to a superhero book to Trinity, which is covering multiple universes and all that. How do you get yourself in the mode to do a different style of book like that? Because Kid Colt, obviously, the coloring work you're going to do on Kid Colt is going to be drastically different than a Trinity.
Yeah, I actually ask myself that sometimes because I don't really know how I do it. I just do it in like an instinctual level. Obviously they look different, and I take a different approach. And with every artist, I even take a different approach. But I don't do very many things differently other than that. I sit at coffee shops all day in color, basically. So and I have my headphones on and I listen to audiobooks. So whatever whatever audiobook I'm listening to, and I finish an issue of Trinity, and then I have to do 8 pages of Kid Colt, I just continue. So, I don't know, but it seems to work, so I'm just going with it.
Well, it is, because I'm literally, it's a nice thing about your blog right now, and I encourage everyone to take a look at this. You can jump from that JSA cover, and you can follow it straight up and take a look at Kid Colt, and there's really a drastic difference between the two in the presentation. I really like that. It's you can definitely tell we're in a different era, and a different time, and a different style of characters, and I just it was something I noticed just glancing through this, and I thought I really appreciated that.
And keep in mind that Kid Colt thing, they don't really do covers for the digital online. They basically take a screenshot out of the interior.
Okay.
So that's actually, they kind of blew that up from a smaller image than I would particularly like. So the interiors are actually a lot cleaner than that. That was probably my only criticism about how that's presented. But yeah, it is definitely a different style, and I get to be super moody, and I like old westerns, so like whenever I can put like a riding into a sunset shot or something like that, I definitely do it.
I'm a big fan of different presentations of comic books now, because I do think the medium needs to keep looking at different distribution and different presentation methods to get work out to the public, especially nowadays with rising paper costs and things like that and cover prices. And with honestly, with the fact that we're all carrying around internet-ready devices. It's I've got a laptop, I've got an iPod Touch, that's Wi-Fi. We've got. My game system is Wi-Fi. It's great to see comics branching out, because I do think that there is an untapped audience that isn't reading comics right now that could be and should be, that haven't picked up the medium. And I don't know, I'm wondering if it isn't the delivery method, if comics were delivered in a different way. And I'm glad to see more explorations trying to find out what that might be. Because I don't have an answer. I don't I wish I had this cusp of saying, well, geez, if, people do digital downloads, or people go to websites, or if, people, can get apps for their iPhone, or I don't know what the answer is yet. And it's something, the only way you're going to find out is experimentation. But I'm glad to see the comic medium doing that. Yeah, no, I am as well. I think, the last big con I went to was, I went to New York, and that's where I talked to a lot of people that were exploring that digital distribution, and a lot of them weren't. I just talked to a lot of independent companies that were starting. They're they offer a scrolling function that you can do on your iPhone or iPod Touch. It'll be interesting to see how good the Kindle 2.0 works, if possible, with comics. Whether Apple's going to put out a 10-inch netbook type tablet. I mean, that's perfect for reading comics. I couldn't imagine anything better if the rumors happen with that. So, yeah, I think the paper format is going to be around. I don't know if the floppies will always be around, but I don't know. It's a very interesting time, and I'll tell you, and from somebody that I'm an illustrator and I do graphic design as well, and I think I'm going to be, and I don't mean to toot my own horn in this, but I think people in the position that I am that can take it from that, what's traditionally a hand-done medium, whether it's drawn by hand and inked by hand, and then convert it into that digital format. I think we're going to be, pretty integral to make that work. So, and I'm already, I'm starting to see that. I mean, obviously I'm doing that already with this Kid Colt stuff. I mean, it's hand-drawn, and then I'm actually, it's my job to make it look good for viewing on the web. So it's fun. It's a little scary, and ultimately I think the market is going to push it one way or another. I really always hope that trades are going to be around, because I love to read things in trade format personally. I do. There's some floppies I just can't wait for. I got to go buy. So, it's an interesting time. I'm a big fan. It's funny. I fall into a hybrid. I like both. There's a lot of books that when I really enjoy them, I'll sell my floppies to then for a lot of rereading purposes get trades and hardcovers and things like that I want for series that I've enjoyed, because for me, for rereading, it's great to have a whole chunk of them together. What would be nice about a digital distribution method for me would be a great way for me to receive my monthly books. And, I want that legally. I want there to be legal ways for people to be able to get this, because, let's be honest. People can illegally grab comics now, but the problem with that, and for anybody that's doing it, the problem with that is you're killing the industry. And, and that's something we've all got to watch out for, is the fact I want this around. I'm right now 38. I want this to be around for another 38 years. I want to go into old age reading comics, because I think this is it's a unique art form. I think we get something from this art form. And my personal opinion right now is the sales numbers for what we consider the top selling comic right now is disgusting in my eyes, because I think comic quality is so high.
I agree with you. Compared to where it was 15, 20 years ago, it's amazing how much work goes into these books, whether it's a DC Marvel book or independent book, So I totally agree with you. I wish personally, and it's not my job, and I don't know whose job it is, but we have these companies making millions and millions of dollars off the movies based on these comics. I wish there was a little back promotion. Like why aren't they saying at the beginning of the movie, like, hey, if you like this movie, then go buy the comic. So just to kind of keep it going, because the people that are that are Batman fans, the majority of them are fans because they read the comic book, not because they just saw the Tim Burton movie or saw the show during the 70s. It's like there needs to be some like stuff back and forth, and I think that's one of the things that I wish the industry would get a little better. I don't know. I don't know if they're just saying that at the beginning of every movie would suddenly make that movie cost that much more, to where they couldn't do that, but. It just seems like a no-brainer to me. Just throw some bones back to the actual reason a lot of these people are even here.
Or even like an arc. When you get the digital copy of the film, nowadays it's real popular when you get a Blu-ray or a DVD that includes a digital copy of the film. That disc is loaded with practically nothing. Why not throw on there a run of a when I say a run, like a 4-issue arc or a 2-issue arc or 3, a lot of titles have 2 or 3 issue arcs that would be a great way to get somebody's feet wet as far as what's going on. And I would encourage a complete storyline. Let people see what it's like to experience a whole story fully developed the way the creative team intended, to draw them in. It's to throw that on a disc costs nothing, because you're putting that disc anyway out there.
Yeah.
So, throw it out there. It doesn't cost you anything to do that. And put that, wait, what a great way to promote selling the DVD. You get a digital copy and some free comics, and maybe it'll draw people to the medium that inspired it to begin with, I just feel right now that the sales number, and I don't think everybody out there will read comics, just like everybody won't read books. So I'm not naive in that sense, but I do think there's an audience that would find this medium cool. That maybe they're not like us. Like we're talking about, you said you're a trade fan. I'm a floppy fan, but I also like trades. We're not the fan they're looking for.
They already have us.
Yeah, we're already hooked.
Right.
So they're trying. I know they're trying to find that next generation of people that want it. They're just going to keep buying. And I know it's kind of a crapshoot. Everybody's trying something different right now, and I understand that. And so it's going to happen. Comics are going to stay around. If nothing else, you figure out you have these corporations that are billion-dollar corporations that are making millions and millions of dollars off of licensing alone. So I think comics are going to survive in some sort of form. I personally like the traditional form of. Even though I said I'm more of a trade guy, I still like floppies. Obviously, it's great to go down to my comic book store, which is Isotope Comics in San Francisco, and buy a couple floppies and go eat lunch and read the books. That's a great couple hours. So I don't know. I hope we can bring that on. Personally, I actually get a lot of free books because of doing so much coloring, and I leave stacks of them at like coffee shops, on the bus. I'm trying to get as many people addicted as possible.
And that is a great way to do it, because I know when I'm at places, I was at, a great example, I was at the dentist office the other day. I'm waiting for my wife. I'm picking up things off the shelf. Now, I don't read People magazine. It was the only thing there that looked remotely interesting to me. So I'm picking up a magazine that I probably wasn't interested in. On the other hand, if there were some comics there, I mean, I remember as a kid, there were always comics at the dentist office.
Yeah.
And I would, I'm an adult right now. I read them. That'd be a great way to get me hooked on a new title, would be able to just grab, a couple of them off the shelf at the dentist office and places like that. Talk about a viral I mean, you're doing your own viral campaign by leaving them around. I think it's great.
It's funny. I go to a lot of different. I don't only go to Starbucks, but there's a Starbucks next to me that, or like a block away, and there's like a little fireplace area with a coffee table. So whenever I kind of get oversaturated with books, I'll just go and just spread out about like a 4-inch stack across the entire table, and then go sit in the corner and then work and just kind of keep an eye on it and kind of see who reads it, who doesn't, who takes one, and it's a fun experiment, a fun social experiment.
Allen, I want to thank you for joining us as always, and I want to remind everyone to please check out his work on JSA, starting with issue 29. Definitely check out angryf.com, angryf.blogspot.com. And Allen, as always, thank you so much for giving us your time, and it was a pleasure.
Oh, well, thank you. You guys are great. It was great meeting you face-to-face in New York, even if it was briefly. And hopefully we can get you out to San Diego at some point, huh?
Oh, I would love to go to the San Diego con. When we were talking to David Barron, that was something that I said it would be really nice to finally hit that con. So keep my fingers crossed.
Well, let us know, because David and I will be chilling next to each other pretty much the entire time. So I will tell him. I can't wait to tell him I just did an interview with you guys. So we'll have a good weekend.
All right, Allen, and thank you again for all your time.
Thanks a lot, man.
No problem. Good talking to you guys. Talk to you later.
Hope this craft can withstand this powerful force.
Hey guys, Donnie Salvo again. I just wanted to say congratulations on getting in the Secret Six book. And you know what the weird thing was? Is when I was flipping through the issue, I'm like, those names sound familiar. Anyway, what I wanted to ask you, though, is now that you're dead inside the DC universe, are you guys going to be Black Lanterns? A little something to make you go, I can just see it now. The zombie Martian Manhunter, the zombie Aquaman, and the zombie Sensei of the Whatnot. A little something to make you go, All right, guys. Hope all's well. Bye.
Does that mean I get to be the podcaster trapped in the lightning rod? Dottie, as always. Guys, if you are listening to Reality Wasted, definitely check out Reality Wasted. I can't believe you're already placing us in Blackest Night. Who'd want us back? Actually, maybe that might be the point, though. We'd be good villains. Anyway, thanks.
Hey, guys. This is Mike from New York, better known as Nathan's dad. And I was just placing my comic order for June, and I saw that there was a trade paperback being re-released that I've been meaning to leave you a message about for a while. I just reread the miniseries Huntress Cry for Blood, which I think is actually listed as Batman Huntress Cry for Blood when you order it. And I was wondering, I'm sure Sean's read it, but I don't know if Jim has. And I know Jim really likes the Vic Sage version of the question, and it's really a question Huntress miniseries written by Greg Rucka, who's wrote the question in 52 and is writing the Renee question now. And it's really, really a good miniseries that I think a lot of people have forgotten about. And if you've read a lot of, Ruckus stuff lately, you'll see a lot of the same themes in this miniseries, even though the miniseries is 9 years old now. And it's really almost a dry run for Vic's relationship with Renee in 52 and what happens after that, where he tries to get close to Helena and try to set her on a path to make her basically an easier person to live with and easier for her to live with herself. But it doesn't quite go as smoothly as it does with Renee, so it's a really good story. And then while we're on the subject of the question, I've also been meaning to mention a DC Universe novel, a paperback novel by Denny O'Neil called Helltown, which is basically a retelling of the Question origin that he did in the Question series from the 1980s, and that novel is really excellent as well, which can't be said for all of the DC novels, but this one is really very good. So check them out if you have a chance, and Jim, definitely pick up that miniseries if you haven't read it. Talk to you later. Bye.
See, I think Nathan's dad is your superhero name, and Mike is just your alter ego, your secret identity. To me, you draw strength when you're Nathan's dad, which you always do. When the two of you are together, there's something powerful about the two of you. But anyway, Mike, it's always good to hear from you. That's a fantastic recommendation. If anybody hasn't picked this series up, it's very self-contained, but it feels very much like something that takes place between the Question series by Denny O'Neil and 52. And it really captures what makes the Question such a cool character, Vic Sage, and what makes Helena Bertinelli, the Huntress, such a cool character. I wanted this. I remember when it came out, I read the miniseries and single issues, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, geez, this should just naturally spin into a series, and I was so hoping that it would happen, because it really was a very natural pairing that it told a very different kind of story, and she drew something off of him with being able to gain some training from him, and he drew something off of her. It was like some motivation that he'd lost. It was very cool in the relationship between the two. I don't want to spoil anything other than just saying that I think that this book is a great example of why I'm so excited for Detective Comics, which it's funny, I haven't talked too much about it, but the Batwoman and the Question together, written by Greg Rucka, that to me is just going to be a home run. It's just going to be a great hit. And they're two wonderful characters, and I'm glad they gave them Detective Comics, because I think that'll draw some more people to give it a chance, because it's in Detective Comics and they want to keep their run going. But I think it's going to be a very unique look at Gotham City from these two characters. I'm curious to see where the Question is going to be operating out of. Is the Question going to be doing more of this global peace agency? Is it going to be more street level? I'm guessing probably more street level, knowing Greg Rucka. I could see her being more of a noir piece with her, and I'm looking very forward to seeing those characters. So it's funny, this is a writer, if you're not reading Rucka's stuff, you've got to do yourself a favor. Or if you liked Final Crisis Revelations, for example, go up and pick up this miniseries. Great recommendation, and something if Jim doesn't have it, I'm going to have to pick up for him, because it's a great read, and I'm always looking for gift ideas for him, and that might be the one for me that I can pick up for him. So thanks a lot, Mike. Always good to hear from you, and pass on hellos to our buddy Nathan.
Hey guys, it's Sébastien from Montreal. I recently bought Camelot 3000 by Mike W. Barr and my favorite artist, Brian Bowen. I met the artist last year at the Canadian Fan Expo in Toronto, and the story goes like this. In the weekend event on Sunday, and only on Sunday, fans had the chance to meet comics superstars Alex Ross and Brian Bowen. You needed a ticket to meet Alex Ross and get 3 articles of your choice signed. Alex was scheduled to start at 1 and finish at 5, but there was so many people in line. I can't give you guys an estimate of how many people were there, but it was a lot. Most likely, you know what I'm talking about. And Brian Bowen was only meeting fans for an hour, about 2 to 3. And I kind of calculated that getting in line to see Alex first, I would have the time to see Brian. But there was too many people taking too much time with the Kingdom Come artist. The idea of me meeting my favorite artist became bleak. Time passes by, and 2 o'clock is just around the corner. Some poor guy without a ticket comes to me and asks if this was the line to meet Alex. I answer him and show him where I think the waiting line ended, and then he tells me he doesn't have a ticket, and my heart sunk. But I only had 1 JSA that I wanted signed, so I told him to get in line with me. And that was kind of my good deed of the day. Then I look at my watch, and I only have like 5 minutes to get in Brian's line. So I look at the guy and said, look, here's my book. Get it to Alex Ross's hands. Make it happen. I want an autograph. The guy was so happy to get a chance to meet his idol that there was no problem. Now, here's a little piece of information I neglected to say. That weekend in Toronto, my leg was in a cast because I broken my ankle a week earlier, dancing at my best friend's wedding. but that's a whole other story. I tried to make my way to Brian's signing booth as fast as I can with my cast boot almost kicking people. I finally make it. Brian is sitting down, signing and taking pictures with fans. That night, the line isn't that long, and as I'm about to get in line, some punk kid tells me, "Hey, Andre the Giant, end of the line." And I go, "What?" This time my heart didn't sink. It filled with rage. Well, all that went away when I heard a voice, it almost sounded like a choir of angels. The voice said, "Hey, Andre, come line with me. I only have a book for signing." And that's my rage quickly went away. I get in line. I meet Brian Bowen, give him my copy of Animal Man, talks to me about my cast boot and how I broke it. We laugh a little and say our goodbyes. Now I got one down and one to go. I get back in Alex Ross's waiting line. The guy is still there, thank God. We both get to see our hero and get our stuff signed. And basically that's how I met Brian Bowen, by the way of good karma. This year I'm going back to Toronto this August for the Canadian Fan Expo. So you think you guys can make it? Check out hobbystar.com. That's HOBBYSTRA.com for more information. That's it for me. Keep up the good work. I'm still listening to all the shows and can't wait to hear the next one. So, bonne journée, les gars. Ciao.
Such a great story, and I'm glad you have that. Convention memories for me, I've been very, very fortunate in the sense that I've had some really just positive convention experiences. Great, opportunities meeting creators. I am a mush mouth when it comes to meeting creators because it's not even so much at this point that I'm starstruck. I am. I mean, I love their work, and that's obviously why I'm there. But it's more so I think I tend to overthink myself when I'm in the line, because I'm thinking about the fact, okay, this person's been sitting there for like ever. If I'm going to say something, I want to make sure I say something that's interesting and intriguing. But then you've been around a con floor all day long. You're tired, so you're not going to be at your wittiest. You're not going to be at your most entertaining and interesting. And sometimes I find myself, I know Jim and I talk about this all the time. You overthink it so much that when you get up there, you're like, duh, book am good. So it's great that you have such a wonderful story like that, because I rarely have that kind of experience where it's been wonderful interaction on the con floor, because like I said, I'm usually exhausted by then. So good for you. I love cons. I'd love to get up to Toronto. My convention schedule is like really up in the air right now. I've got a wedding this summer that I'm going to in Maine in July, which seems to be just in the middle of a whole bunch of convention opportunities. There's going to be a big one in Cleveland in early July. Well, it's a new one. Actually, it's coming up. It's going to be celebrating Superman, which when I have more details on that, I'll talk about it on the show, but we're definitely going to be going to that. There's one that I was looking at in Metropolis, Illinois. I kind of like thinking about making this summer a Superman month and hitting that. But then there's always my friends in Chicago I'd like to visit. I'd love to hit out to Toronto, like you said. So I don't know. I'm very up in the air this year. It all depends on how things work out. I'd love to head out to Toronto just because I've heard great things about Toronto cons, and I'd love to be able to experience that and hopefully to hook up with you and shake hands and chit-chat and that type of thing. So I don't know. I'm very up in the air. I'll certainly, as always, I'll announce anything that becomes for sure on the show. The Cleveland one, the one that's going to be here, I'm obviously going to be at. There's a Superman one that's going to be here. It's the people who did the Screaming Tiki Con here combined with another con that's in Cleveland, and it's all to do with these plaques that they're putting down for Siegel and Schuster here. So when there's more details about that, I will definitely talk about it on the show. I actually want to see if we can somehow get somebody on from behind the scenes of that to chat about it. I don't know if that's going to work out or not, but we're going to be there reporting on this con because I think it's great that there's going to be a Superman celebration here in Cleveland because it's something that should be honored, and I love they're putting plaques where the creators lived and something to landmark this, because I think this industry deserves to be landmarked just like any other art form, and doggone it, it's just about time. So it's great that more and more of this is coming to fruition, and I'm excited. So thank you, Sebastian, for sharing your stories, though, because that's, to me, part of the joy of cons is your memories that you get from there. I have walls of signed comics here in our office. I'll have to take pictures of it one of these days to put up on the website. Over the summer, I'm going to be kind of revamping and reworking it. And when I'm done with it and I've got everything laid out, I'll take pictures of the office where Jim and I record to put on the website. You guys can kind of see what it looks like. But all the covers that I have hanging from the walls here are covers that I've gotten signed by creators that I've met at cons. And each one is a memory for me, a memento of that meeting, and just being able to thank them for the work that they did. And like I said, I get mush-mouthed and all that stuff, but the important part is I got the opportunity to say thank you for entertaining me and for what you do. And that's an important part of this experience for me, and that's what those signed covers are to me. They're all personalized. I'm not planning to eBay them or anything like that. It's, for me, a memento of that experience. So I always picked up covers of books from favorite creators for that purpose, and to those meetings. So that's kind of what I do when I go to cons. And I think we all have our own little personal things that we like to do at cons and why we like to do that. So I'm glad you got to meet Brian Boland and do that, because obviously your favorite artist, that's a momentous occasion for you, and I'm thrilled you got to have that. Thanks for sharing the story.
Hi, Sean and Jim. This is Fate calling. Just to let you know, I picked up Blackest Night #0 yesterday at Free Comic Book Day. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And, man, that was really, really good. It's got me jazzed for the Blackest Night series coming out. It's got me jazzed for the all the crossovers, and I cannot wait. I hope you guys are enjoying it as much as I am, and I look forward to your next episode, and thanks for everything you do. Take care.
This is one of the things I love about the voicemail lines. Just a great, just shout out some thoughts that you had. Free Comic Book Day was awesome, and Blackest Night really just surprised me at how enjoyable that was. Like I said, when Mike and I were chatting about it, it's one of those books where I was surprised at how much storytelling we got. It was very character-driven for a zero issue and really hooked me in, and I really appreciate that they took that route with it. Free Comic Book Day is wonderful for me because it's a great chance to take a look at a lot of the stuff that's just happening around comics. We do this show, it's DC-focused, but I'm a fan of all of comics. So it's wonderful to see what independents are doing, and I always wind up finding one or two titles that I end up continuing to follow or enjoying. Top Shelf does a Owly book, which I got introduced to years ago from Free Comic Book Day, and I look forward to their Free Comic Book Day offering. It's a very charming, all ages. It's great for the family. Ollie's just a fun. There's something about the character that you just can't help but like. It's got that Johnny DC kind of feel to it, and so it's that type of book. My wife's a kindergarten teacher, and it's a great book for her. I use it in my class with my third graders. It's a unique and interesting book, so that's one that I always enjoy. And Love and Caves from Tom Zoller I mentioned as well. But Blackest Night, the summer event that I think we're all looking forward to. And it's funny how, when they started announcing these miniseries, it got me more excited because I'm excited for the Batman one. I'm very Batman universe happy right now, and I do want to see how Blackest Night affects his universe and what's going on there. I'm assuming this is going to be targeting the new Batman because of time placement where this takes place. So I'm going to be curious to see what characters are brought in and how that works. Every time I see another preview, though, for Blackest Night, it just looks interesting to me. And the Green Lantern books are hitting a home run, so that was a great feel. Micah, when we did our chat, we actually did a conversation about Free Comic Book Day, which I just have not had a chance to edit down. I'm definitely going to put that on as a bonus feature over the next couple of weeks on there. I had him on specifically for the purpose of recording Blackest Night, and then we have all this extra footage because the two of us just kept chatting, and I really had a great time chatting with him, so I'm glad that it worked out that way, and that is something I'll be sharing with all of you as a bonus feature down the road. But thanks a lot for those thoughts.
Hey there, guys. Don Sanderson here. Just wanted to rant and rave a little bit about Smallville season finale. I don't know if you guys are getting to this in your episode that I'm listening to right now, 160, but I'm halfway through, I guess, on that one. So, but needless to say, there were some just really great moments, and there were very disappointing moments as well. And my biggest beef about Smallville is that Clark continues to be a giant wuss, and they just are not letting him be the man that he actually was. Clark Kent in Smallville in the comic books as Superboy definitely understood his destiny a lot more than the Smallville Clark Kent and embraced it and just went for it. And Clark is just so mamby-pamby, whether it's about fighting crime and embracing his destiny, or going after Lois and embracing that part of his destiny. The last few scenes of the season finale before the Zod reveal just had me screaming at the TV. I was like, Clark would never say Clark Kent is dead and leave Chloe standing there crying, because he's going to run away, go home with his football and cry or whatever. I was really rather irked about that. My hypothesis of the season opener will be that Lois goes back to the current timeline with Legionnaire members and brings Jimmy Olsen back to life. And somebody just needs to shake Clark and get his head together, because this is getting ridiculous. The opening scene with the whole team, with Ollie and Dinah and Bart was very cool. And, there's definitely cool parts about it. I'm not really crazy about the Doomsday being able to be separated from itself. But visually, very appealing episode. Just continuity-wise and the script writing, just somewhat disappointing that, they're making Clark be so wishy-washy. I did get to see the Wonder Woman DVD that you guys reviewed last episode. Loved it. I just want to repeat what Brent said, what you guys said. It was wonderful, not surprised. Gail Simone wrote it. I can't wait for the Green Lantern one to come out, and I hope they come out every few months, because I'm looking forward to a Flash one and an Atom one and a Hawkman one, and I hope they cover all the JLA guys. Anyway, it's a beautiful rainy day in Orlando, Florida today, and I'm going to enjoy it. So you have a terrific day, and thanks for all you do. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
It's funny, I didn't get the wuss thing from Clark on this one. I actually thought it was refreshing to see Clark stand his guns, to take steps. I like that he is upset about his world around him and that there's all this deception and that he wants that morality and he's fighting against it, to the point where, he stands to his guns as far as separating Davis. The Black Kryptonite was something established on Smallville before. So, whether you like that as a plot device, I can't argue with you on that. I don't think this episode was perfect, so I don't want to say that. And there's things this season that I didn't think were perfect, but I really enjoyed this season. I thought in many ways it reinvigorated the show for me. My one gripe with this particular episode, and I know Jim and I are going to talk about this a bit further, so I'm not going to go too crazy right now, because we talked about our next episode. We wanted to chat together about it. The fight scene, I would have loved to have seen more from the fight scene. A little bit longer, a little bit more depth to it, because what I saw I really liked. It showed the power of Doomsday. It really showed a creature that could kill Superman, and that was something that I really liked visually, how that was presented. I just would have liked to have seen more. I would have liked to have seen the JLA stand toe-to-toe with Clark against Doomsday and show how ineffective they would be against a creature like this. I think that is something that would have added to the episode. It felt to me like that season ending should have been a two-parter. That should have been 2 episodes that were put together. They could have added more to it. I do think, though, I didn't see him as being a wuss. I really thought that we're starting to see more of him defining who he is. And I liked the moments where Jimmy realized who he was, and Clark, let him know that he was the red and blue blur, and you got the whole Superman's pal thing going on. I don't know that I wouldn't be against seeing Jimmy Olsen come back via Lois, and if that happens, I will be very cool with it, because I really like the actor Aaron Ashmore playing Jimmy Olsen. I think he's done a wonderful job. I was thrilled that it wasn't somebody else who I was thinking had a target painted on them, and it was a nice surprise to see that character survive. So to me it was a wonderful season finale. Wasn't perfect, and there were some things that need to be worked on, but I think we're seeing a growth in Clark. I do agree with you that we're not seeing Superman yet, in the sense that seeing him hit that role. We're seeing a growth in this character that has fit his Smallville development, but I do think there has been progress with him. We can just agree to disagree on that one. But the Wonder Woman DVD, I agree with you. I'd love to see these bi-monthly. I'm sure they just take an intense amount of time to develop. But hey, I don't care if it's every 6 months, one a year, whatever it takes to develop these, as long as they keep developing them with the quality of the Wonder Woman. Like, I want Green Lantern to be what this Wonder Woman DVD was. And if it is, I will be smiling ear to ear. I agree with you. I'd love to see Flash. I'd love to see Hawkman. Really, anybody they'd like to do. I'd like to see a sequel to the Wonder Woman one. Some of these, I'd like to see when they do these original ones, I'm hoping that they would lead to sequels and more development of this. This is a great delivery method for these heroes, and I'm hoping that they're profitable. I'm hoping that, because I think anybody who worked on this deserves to be making money off of it. And, as a fan, this is the kind of original content that I want to see. I think it's a great way to help people understand. I'm hoping that non-comic fans or, people who are casual comic fans maybe are trying these out and finding, because you can get this on iTunes and things like that. So I'm hoping people are downloading these for their iPods and that, maybe who like the superheroes in the media and are giving them a shot as well, because I think it's a great way for them to get to know and get familiar with characters who they don't already know. And maybe that'll get somebody to try out the comics, just because, hey, now I watched the Wonder Woman, and man, that was cool. Is this what the comics like? And yeah, it is. So jump over and check it out. So I'm hoping that something like that will cause, even if it's just a couple of people, hey, a couple more people reading the books is good for all of us. So thanks a lot.
Hey, guys, it's Don again. One more thing. I saw Star Trek in IMAX over the weekend. Greatest movie of all time. I know it's not DC. I've been a Trekkie since I was a kid, but not like a DC fan or whatever. I'm totally comic book more than Star Trek. But it was the most exciting, most visually appealing, greatest script, characters that you can latch onto and love from the past. Wonderful movie I've ever seen. And I hope that the guys at DC look at that and make a Justice League movie just like it. All right, see you, bye.
That is a great point. It's funny. I didn't see the Justice League segue until when you hit it. I'm like, oh my gosh, Donna's nailing this one. I agree with you. I think when you get to the core root of what makes characters interesting, and when you get to the core, you can revamp. Like, this Star Trek movie is just a definite revamp, but they stuck to the core of what made Kirk cool, what made Spock cool. McCoy, Sulu, Chekhov was wonderful. Mr. Scott, Uhura, you keep going. I mean, there was wonderful drama, and just, it's a great reimagining. I'm excited for the next film already. And, you could argue, geez, and, it wasn't perfect and all that, and, some of the changes that they made. I don't know. I was thoroughly entertained for 2 hours. That thing just flew by. And I mean that totally as a complimentary thing. I saw it twice. I went Thursday night with some coworkers, and I got to be honest with you, I enjoyed it even more the second time because I didn't have all my baggage with me. I walked in. I'm a classic Trek fan. I grew up as a kid watching Trek. My dad used to bring home film reels for my birthday. I remember having birthday parties. He was a school principal, and they had a film projector there and everything like that. And because of the library program, they were able to get a couple episodes of Star Trek. This is before VCRs, so this to me was like, oh my gosh, I'm able to watch a television episode when I want to and repeatedly. And I remember I had to rewind the reel, but I mean that's going back how long? It was the episode with Joan Collins actually, featuring, you guys know I've mentioned on the show, I love Booster Gold and Doctor Who and stuff like that because of time travel. This was a time travel episode, and it was just a great example of what makes Star Trek very, very cool. And to have a movie that captured that feel for me again, and yeah, they made some changes, and I don't want to go too much into that right now and spoil it for people, but they made changes to me that made sense for a new audience, yet didn't alienate me as a classic fan. I was thoroughly entertained, thoroughly excited. Home run. And if you haven't seen this, or for whatever reason, even if you don't like Star Trek, this is a very today exciting. My wife is not a Star Trek fan by any stretch. Loved the movie. we went. She had a wonderful time with it. So I think it's very accessible to newer Star Trek fans as well. So home run on that, and I think that's the reason why this film is doing so well in the box office. And I'm glad to see it because I want to see films do well that I appreciate and I enjoy. And this is a medium. Science fiction is something that you can go anywhere with science fiction. So I'm glad to see that one do well. And thanks, Don, for the segue. I'm actually going to be joining in on an episode of The Book Cave. We're going to be talking about Star Trek, so I was really excited to be invited to be a part of that. And I know he's inviting a couple of guests on that we're going to be chatting about Star Trek. It's going to be a nice chance for me to kind of do a podcast where I can kind of branch out a little bit from DC and do that. I love our show, but it's always fun for me to guest on somebody else's show, just to be able to kind of hang back and talk about something a little different, because we all love these various entertainment mediums, and it's great to be able to share our fandom. And Star Trek is certainly one of those things. I would love to talk Star Trek, so I'm glad. I will announce on the show and on the website and the forum when that episode is going to be coming out. I know we're recording it this week. I believe on Thursday, if all goes well, we're going to be recording that. So as soon as that episode's up, I know he always posts the new episodes in our forum. I will certainly post it on the website so people can join in and announce it on the show as well, because I'm excited for that. So thanks a lot, Don. I want to remind everyone that our listener voicemail line is open to everybody. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having your thoughts and comments on the show, so please get them into us.
Reaching melting point. Not sure we can make it.
I want to remind everyone to check out the box sort upright dividers that you can only find in the drawer box storage system. www.collectiondrawer.com. Definitely check that out. I'm a big fan of the drawer boxes. That, to me, I will not go back to anything else now. This is my box of choice for taking care of my collection. So definitely check out drawer boxes. They're amazing. I want to remind everyone to check out dcbservice.com and instocktrades.com. Over at DCB Service, you can pre-order right now Justice Society of America, featuring friend of the show, Allen Passalaqua. Issue 29 is written by Bill Willingham and Matthew Sturgis, art and cover by Jesus Marino. A new era begins for the Justice Society of America as writers Bill Willingham and Matthew Sturgis take over the series with the new artist, Jesus Marino, just as two new recruits make their debut with the team. Strange happenings at the JSA mansion are weird precursors to an all-out attack on all members of the team, all but one. And what is the strange connection that new members, King Chimera and All-American Kid, might have with the turmoil? Regularly $2.99, 50% off only $1.49. I am a huge JSA fan. I am so anxious to see what Justice Society America number 29 looks like, what this team's going to do with this book. The more preview art I'm seeing for this and with the characters that they're laying out, it looks like they're really trying to keep the society aspect of this book in there. And I'm really excited. I just saw the solicits for issue number 30, and the front cover on its own has me excited for what's coming up. So JSA is a book I'm sticking with. I'm hoping that this creative team nails it, because I love what they're doing on Fables, and I think that this is going to be a book that is really going to showcase what they can do with superheroes. So I'm anxious to see Willingham and Sturgis have a good time with this. So check out JSA and support friend of the show, Allen Passalaqua. Whatever your shipping preferences, your bag and boarding preferences, DCBService.com is flexible and accommodates your collecting needs. It's funny, I just took a peek over at InStockTrades.com, and they do have that trade paperback, Batman Huntress Cry for Blood. It's regularly $12.95, 37% off, only $8.16. It's 140 pages by Greg Rucka, artist Rick Burchett, and Ted Beatty. And it's just a fantastic read, so definitely do what Mike said and check this one out, but you can't beat that price point. So check out InStockTrades.com for that. And remember, orders of $50 or more are free shipping. And I'm sure there's a lot of books that all of you out there are looking to pick up trade paperback-wise and things like that. Start grabbing those orders together, or do what I said before earlier when I was talking about the collection drawers. Get together with a couple of friends who are comic book fans, put your order together, and save on that shipping. It saves you some money. You get the books that you want. In this economy right now, banding together with a couple of comic fans and getting some discounts and getting to read your material at a savings of a price, that's an extra trade for one of you. So You can't beat those prices. So definitely check out InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com. And thanks for supporting us. Jim and I are going to be joined in our next episode by a friend of the show and creator of the comic book Witch Hunter as we discuss Oracle. We're going to be discussing issues 1 through 3, the Barbara Gordon character, where we think it's all going from here, and just kind of having some fun speculating. We're going to be doing some speeding bullets on Battle for the Cowl. Talk some more Trinity for sure. We got a whole bunch of stuff really to talk about that I'm sure won't be contained within that episode. We'll have to continue on. I'm glad I got a chance to come back a little bit earlier on this one. I know we've been delayed in a couple of episodes, so I figured let me have this offering out. It's funny with how crazy the school year gets for me and Jim's job gets for him. I was looking back, and from January to May, we've actually had 4 episodes every month. And I told Jim, I said I couldn't believe it because I would thought for sure with some of our crazy schedules we didn't do that. So my goal now is for 2009 to make sure that every month we have at least 4 episodes, and just to keep that going every month. And that's kind of my it reinvigorated me to make sure that we have that in there. So I was excited to get this one out to you a little bit sooner to make sure we stay on track for that. And I hope you enjoy this particular offering. So we will see you next week, and then after that we're heading to our big, long Halloween episode, which is good because I will be at the end of my school year, so I can really hit to something heavy and in-depth like that. I'm really excited to do something big and meaty again. We haven't done that in a little while because of my schedule, and it's time for us to kind of sink our teeth into a big, meaty Batman offering. So Long Halloween is coming, and I'm about halfway done with my notes right now, and it's going to be big. This is going to be a fun one. So what we're going to do is we're going to break that up into at least 2 segments. And have other offerings on there as well, like speeding bullets, because this summer with everything going on in the Superman books, the Batman books, Wonder Woman's got stuff going on, Green Lantern and all, we want to keep following the stuff that's going on in the current monthlies, so we'll probably break that up into 2 or 3 segments that will be co-features on our show, so it'll be kind of fun to have a good time talking Long Halloween and just kind of enjoying that and some of the current books as well. So we will see you next week.
Bye!